Hi, my name's Mallory Hahn, and I am here to do my final report for my practicum with Center Stage this semester. Um, I'm going to talk about a few different things. A lot about what I learned this semester. It was a really big learning curve and a great learning experience for me. So I'm really excited to give the general overview of everything that I learned this semester with Center Stage. So to start off, my objectives that I had with the practicum, why I wanted to do it and what I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to do my practicum with Center Stage because I want to be an event planner after I graduate from college. So Center Stage is our organization on campus that organizes all of the professional performances that happen here on campus. So anybody that comes in that is a professional, we deal with directly, and we make sure everything is put on for the performance and everything is organized for the performance. So that is the main reason that I wanted to work with Center Stage, is because it is events with professionals that are in the real world, and I think that is a really great experience to be able to gain while I'm in college. A lot of people do that, like as their job, as their professional job. As event planners, they'll plan these performances that come in, and I get to do that while I'm in college and pretty much do it on my own, and so I think that is a really awesome experience. And so with this, I wanted to be able to gain experience that would help me in my career after I graduate. This semester was my first semester being the director of Center Stage. I've been a board member for 4 semesters, and this was my 5th semester working with Center Stage, and I'm a director now, which means I'm the director of events, which means I run the show. I make sure everything is done to have the show run professionally and well, and so I wanted to make sure that I was able to get good experience out of that. And so my first objective would be to gain experience for my industry, and my other objective, I would say, would be to know how to handle different kinds of clients in the best way, depending on their personality and things like that. Finding how to handle different clients in different situations for my career also. So that's why I started to work with Center Stage, and why I really worked hard to get this job as director, because it is real life experience that is applicable for the career I want to go into. And so it is the perfect practicum for me to do while I am in college. So that is the objectives that I had for my practicum this semester. I kind of already talked about the purpose. My purpose was to gain experience with performers and professionals, so that I could put this information on my resume. That's what this industry is all about, is experience and what you know and who you know and how well you do everything. And so this is a great chance for me to be able to gain this amazing experience while I'm in college. So as director of Center Stage, I had a lot more responsibility this semester than I had in the past with Center Stage. And so the process that I went through in general, like every week, was on Monday I would meet with my boss to discuss upcoming performances, what was needed for them, what kind of marketing we wanted to do, what we needed to plan for, what meals we needed to plan for, what we needed to plan for the performer. Everything that entailed in the performance, we discussed. We would discuss past performances and how well they went, or what we could have done to improve those, and what we could implement in the future to be better with performances. So we talked about specific marketing ideas, a lot of social media. We talked about dinners and that we would need to provide, how many people we would be providing for, green rooms, prepping, what for the performer, anything that they need or asked for, load-in times for performers, what AV needed to know about the performers, what the ushers needed to know about performers. We talked about everything. That's a good majority of what we would talk about every week. So you would do that Monday morning, and then Monday evening I would meet with the Center Stage Marketing Board and run a meeting there. And what is encompassed usually in a marketing meeting, we start off with discussing again the last performance that we had. We go over reviews from audience members to see what we can improve on and anything that we did well that we should continue doing. And then we usually would dive right into marketing for the upcoming performances. Usually we'd focus on the next 2 upcoming performances. And we would try to come up with different marketing campaigns for each one, make sure they were individualized and that they were going to be good for our target audience of BYU Idaho students. We came up with lots of different ideas in these meetings. We came up with different video ideas, social media posts, interactive things that we could do at our booth in the Man-Wearing Center, posters that we could make, a lot of social media contests. So we would just talk about lots of different things. Sometimes we'd form groups and have certain groups work on different marketing ideas so that we could get more ideas blossoming. Sometimes we would discuss them as a group. Sometimes one person would come up with an idea and we'd build off of that, or sometimes we would bring in props to bring inspiration and have them base their ideas off of the props that they were given. We were able to come up with some really good ideas this semester, I think. And after we came up with the ideas that we wanted to produce for the week, we would start to produce them. We would start to assign tasks of, okay, who wants to help post on social media this week? Who wants to make this poster? Who wants to work the booth and get people involved at our booth in the Man-Wearing Center? We'd make tasks that people could sign up for, and we'd put it into action right then. Okay, when are you going to do this? This needs to be done by Wednesday at 5, and I need it emailed to me by then, so that we can have it printed and ready to go for the concert, and things like that. So for meetings, we would start with reviewing, seeing what we can improve. Then we'd come up with our marketing ideas, and then we'd figure out how we were going to implement them during the week and assign tasks and things like that. So that's what we did on Monday. And then throughout the week, I would help to implement whatever marketing strategy we came up with. So a lot of times I would have to go and buy things at the store for the booth, or get together with board members to create marketing that we were going to put up around campus, or get together with marketing board members to create a video that we were going to make for our social media contest, or design things that we would use for marketing on social media and stuff like that. So during the week, I would do that. And I would also prepare for the performance by doing things like ordering the dinner, going to the grocery store and buying everything that we needed for the green room, making sure that everything that the performer needed and wanted was available to him or her so that they could be comfortable while they were here at BYU Idaho. That's mostly what I did during the week. And then usually our shows were on Friday or Saturday nights. And so by the time the weekend would come, what I would do is go to the venue of the performance about an hour before the performer was to arrive. And usually the performer arrived between noon and 2 p.m. So I would usually get there between like 10 and noon, whenever it was, at least an hour before the performance, to set up the green room. I'd go and get ice and make sure that if their green room didn't have a fridge in it, that there was a cooler with drinks and ice in it. I'd set up the green room all nice and pretty, making sure that all their snacks that they asked for in there, towels, steamer, cups, plates, napkins, utensils, paper towels, like anything that they needed or I thought that they could possibly need, I tried to put in their green room. And that's definitely one thing I learned, was to try to think like a performer and what they would need and think before they could ask for it, so that it was already there and they didn't even have to ask for it. And so I'd go and make sure it's all set up, and then I would be there to answer any questions that the AV production team had, and then I would wait there until the performer arrived, and then I would greet the performer when they came in, explain my role, that I was there to help them with anything they needed. I'd show them their green room, make sure they knew when sound check times were, when dinner was, where certain things were, and then I would leave them to sound check. And then during that time that they were sound checking, I would do other things. I would go and set up tables for their merchandise out in the lobby, or I would make sure we had everything that we needed for the dinner, or I would go and get whatever else they needed for their green room or for their performance. And I would make sure our center stage booth was set up out in the lobby. And I was mostly doing lots of laps around each auditorium that we have our performances in, just making sure everything was prepared, everything was right and ready for them to go. And then about an hour before dinner, usually we had dinner at 5:30, I would go and start setting up dinner. So I'd go into whatever room we had set aside for the dinner, and I would lay out tablecloths on each table. I would get all of the serving utensils ready. I would set up drinks and napkins and make sure that we had everything that we needed. And then my co-director would usually go and pick up the dinner while I stayed back to make sure that the performer was all set, making sure their sound check stayed on time and that they were able to stay on schedule as best as possible. And then once my co-director brought the dinner back, we'd set up all the dinner, and then I'd go over to the auditorium and get the performer and the AV team, bring them back, and serve dinner. And that's when things started to get pretty crazy. Around the time that dinner started is also when we had our center stage board members arrive to help at the performance. And then so I'd go from the dinner, I'd go to the board, I'd explain their duties for the evening, I'd hand out whatever they were supposed to hand out to the audience, and I'd assign them to doors of the auditorium so that they could go there and greet audience members as they came into the performance. I would make sure the performer was set. Sometimes I'd have to get in my car and drive them back to their hotel to grab their clothes that they forgot, or I'd have to run and grab Sharpies for the meet and greet afterwards that we didn't have, or random things. I'd go backstage and make sure AV was fine, making sure everyone had water in AV, and we had water next to the stage for the performer, making sure that the ushers knew of any policies that the performer had with photography and video, or with anything like that, if there's a meet and greet that's going to happen, stuff like that. Then I would discuss with the between all this, I'd be discussing with the performer those details, when if there's an intermission, if there's a meet and greet, if he or she was okay with photography and video, what kind of introduction they wanted on stage, and stuff like that. And again, I'm just usually making laps around the auditorium, trying to make sure everything is in place and that everyone knows what to do, so that everything can run smoothly. And about 5 minutes before the performance starts, I would go backstage to ensure that everything was set. And then right as the performance started, I would go on stage to introduce the performer, make all the announcements of the different things that the performer wanted, whether photo and video was allowed, meet and greets, things like that. And then the performer would go on, and I'd clean up from dinner, make sure everything was, set and cleaned up. And then after the performance, I would help control the meet and greet. Sometimes those can get pretty crazy with bigger performers that come. People get really excited, and lots of people stay, and depending on the building, lines can weave in and out of rooms or down hallways and up and down staircases, and things like that. It can get pretty crazy. So I'd make sure I'd bring out the performer afterwards, and then keep the line moving as steadily as possible. After a meet and greet was over, I would make sure that the performer was set first, and that if there's anything else that they needed, I would get that for them. And then I would send anyone that wasn't needed from the center stage marketing board home. And then I would wait for the performer to finish up and make sure they got off on their way all right and that everything was good. And then I would stay to clean up their green room. And then we would be finished for the evening. So that's the usual process of center stage that we would go through every week, that I would go through every week as the director. This semester we had 7 performances. We had The Great Kaplan, which was an illusionist. We had Nathan Pacheco, who's a singer. We had Mike Super, who's another illusionist. We had the Sacred Music series, and we had an organist come, and our last performance was, I don't know why I'm blanking on it all of a sudden. And then we had Diego Figueiredo. He was a good Brazilian guitarist. So we had a wide range of different performances. We had, we also had Patriots and Pioneers. So those were all of our performances this semester. So Patriots and Pioneers was our biggest performance. We held it in the Eye Center. Nathan Pacheco was our next biggest performance. We had that in the Heart. And then we had Diego Figueiredo and Mike Super and the Great Kaplan in the Kirkham. And then we had the Sacred Music Series and our organist in the Barris Concert Hall in the Snow Building here at BYU Idaho. So we had them all of varying sizes, from like 600 people to 4,000 people. And it was really interesting to see how much detail has to go into each performance, and how, as they get bigger, the more details that you have to think of that go into each of them. So that was the process. With my experience with Center Stage, I had a lot of fun, again, with the varying sizes. I had a lot of fun meeting all of these amazing performers, and I gained a lot of great experience from them. Again, seeing how each of them act and work, and how different personalities work, and how they determine what they need based on their audience size, or things like that. I was able to work directly with some big managers of these people who manage lots of big stars, and Nathan Pacheco was my second performance that I ran as director, and his manager is an amazing woman who manages lots of different big singers and groups, and she said she wouldn't have ever noticed that this was my first big performance that I had put on, and only my second performance, and that I took as a big compliment. I was very proud that I was able to run the show well enough for her not to realize that I was a newbie at this job. So that was really cool. Some of the challenges that I faced in this job, I think one big challenge that I face is delegation. I am not very good at delegating. I have a vision of what I want done in my head, and I want to do it myself so that I know it gets done correctly. And I think I've realized as I've gone on that I can't do that. I don't have enough manpower in myself to be 4 places at once when it's in a auditorium that fits 15,000 people, and I need to give jobs to others and be willing to let go and trust in others that they will do as well of a job. So that's a challenge that I had to learn and face this semester as becoming the director. That's just something that I was very challenging for me. Another challenge that I faced, I think, was realizing how many tiny details go into each of these performances. I am not going to be here for Education Week, for the Education Week performance, and I am having to have someone else help with that. And so I wrote down every single thing that I do to make sure a performance runs smoothly. And it took up 2 pages in Microsoft Word of my list of what I do each performance. There are so many little details that you don't think of, that event planners have to think of. That's my job, that I'm going to have to think of every tiny little detail, up to trash bags and trash cans and markers and towels and lighting and things like that. There's so many tiny details that you have to think of that even I didn't realize as a person who wants to go into this industry. There's a lot riding on the event planner's shoulders to make sure that that one person remembers literally every single detail of the event. And so that's definitely a challenge that I faced, and it's something that I had to learn really quickly and make sure that I wrote every single thing down that I needed to do so I didn't forget any little detail and have something go wrong because of something that I forgot. So that those are some challenges that I face. I think a future employer of mine would love to see this experience on my resume. I think, again, it shows that I'm a leader. It shows that I've learned that of all these little details. It shows that I've worked with professionals that travel the world to perform, and I think that's really cool to show. And so I think that an employer would see this as very valuable and would definitely appreciate it. And I know I've actually talked to people in the industry, and they say that this is like one of the best things that I could have on my resume. So I'm really grateful for the opportunity I had to do this practicum with Center Stage this semester and be the director, and to be able to work directly with all of these performers that come to BYU Idaho. It is amazing to see it go from just me planning these little things and going to the grocery store to this giant performance for thousands of people that fit in this auditorium that just appreciate it so much. And that's why I do it. That's why I love this industry and why I'm so excited to continue to work in it, and why I loved doing this practicum. I had an amazing experience with it. I learned a lot, faced a lot of challenges, and overcame most of them, I would say. And I am excited to keep doing this and to gain even more experience with it. So that is my time that I've had with Center Stage this semester. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My email is malloryhahn@gmail.com, and you can email me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about this. So today I've gone over my objectives, my purpose, my process, my experience, and challenges that I faced with Center Stage, and why an employer would think that this practicum was valuable. So I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you're able to learn a little bit about Center Stage and what goes on behind the scenes. Thanks again.